Okay, so welcome to this video. We're going to focus on this video on solving quadratics by the four methods that we have learned, which is factoring, square root method, quadratic formula, and completing the square. So I'm going to run through two by factoring. I'll start over on the right with the easiest. So this is, again, this is just a 1. So you should not need to do the AC method. You should be able to go straight to factoring. So I want what are factors of 42 that will give me a negative 13. So in this case, they're going to both be negative. And that would be 6 and 7. 6 and 7. Negative 6 and negative 7 is positive 42, but add to be negative 13. So I just need x minus 6 and x minus 7. Okay? And then I set each factor equal to 0 and solve. Remember, you should either write your answer together or as a set. Okay? So that is the preferred method than just saying x equals 6, x equals 7. So either one of these would be acceptable. So that's when x equals 1, or a equals 1. So this one, a equals 6. Do always look for a greatest common factor. There's not one. So if you want, we can go ahead and do the AC, which would give me a negative 120. So I am looking for factors of 120. One of them is going to be negative, one's going to be positive, that give me 7. And again, I could just start going through all the different factors, but this is going to work out to be 15 and 8. Okay, so remember what we do. The first one stays exactly the same. Okay, we're substituting for this. So I'm going to put the negative 8x, the plus 15x, and then the 20, again, just comes straight down. So remember, guys, when we're doing this, all we're really doing is substituting these two. And if you think about it, if I was foiling, let's say, remember when we FOIL, we'll end up with the outside and the inside having something similar to the negative 8x plus 15x, and I put them together and get the 7x. So we're just really doing backwards FOIL when we're doing the AC method. Okay, now we're going to group the first two and group the second. And again, I like underlining them because if you put parentheses, then a lot of times you turn it into a multiplication problem, which is not what it is. Okay, so greatest common factor now is what I'm doing. So I have 2. We'll go into both of those, into 6 and 8. And an x will go into x squared and x. Okay, so 6x squared divided by 2x would be 3x. And 8x divided by, negative 8x divided by 2x would be 4. Okay. 5, and we'll go into both 15 and 20. 20 does not have a variable, so I don't need to take a variable out. 3x minus 4. Now, guys, again, reminder, the key here is when you're doing these two had better be the same thing. If they're not, you've messed up. So I take out that 3x minus 4 because it is now a common factor. I'm left with 2x plus 5 equals 0. Again, I'm going to go ahead and set both factors equal to 0. So x equals 4/3. I'm going to do the same thing over here. So x equals a negative 5 halves. And again, negative 5 halves, usually we'll do the smallest one first, but it's not important if you don't. Okay? Now, do I expect you to do the AC method? No. If you like guessing and checking, then do that method. Okay, next method is to do the square root method. Okay? So remember, when I'm doing the square root, I could give you, let me just give you another one. So you could have something like 2x squared plus 3 equals Oh, what do we want to do? Let's do a -5. Okay. So I'm going to, in this case, subtract 3. 2x squared equals a -8. Divide by 2. X squared equals a -4. I'm going to square root, and if I'm solving, I do have to complete this out. So x equals plus or minus. Remember, the square root of a -4 is 2i. And that would be my answer. So you can get imaginary numbers here. It is possible also that you might have to do some rationalizing. So any of that stuff could occur. So this one I'm going to minus 3. So I'm going to get 6. I need to divide off the 2. Okay. I'm going to square root both sides. Do not forget the plus or minus. Okay. And then I need to move the 1 over. Okay, so I'm adding 1. So 1 plus or minus square root of 3. Remember that it is always written in the form of a plus or minus bi, or a plus or minus b square root. Okay? Either way. But the plus or minus should always be in the middle. I guess I could have put square root of b on that one. Whatever. Okay? But the plus or minus goes in the middle. Okay. The next one that we're going to do is solving by the quadratic formula. Okay? Be sure you do have that memorized. Again, one of the things that I want you to be sure that you do is identify your A, B, and C. Also, be sure it's always set equal to 0. If not, you'll need to do that. So A is 3, B is 10, C is a -5. And then we're just going to substitute in opposite of B, plus or minus, square root of B squared. Now remember also, if B is negative, we got to put parentheses around it. 4 times A times C, all over 2 times A. And so we're just going to simplify. There's 100 plus, what would that be, 60? 4 times 5 is 20. 20 times 3 would be 60. All over 6. So square root of 160 over 6. And we are going to need to simplify the square root of 160. Find us a perfect square in there. Again, go through your perfect squares, 4, 9, so forth, but hopefully you see it's 16 and 10, which is 4 square root 10. Square root of 16 is 4. So I have a -10 plus or minus 4 square root of 10 over 6. Okay? And the last thing is to remind you guys that if you can draw a triangle and there is a number that will go into all 3 of those, we do have to simplify it. So my final answer here, because 2 will go into all of those, will be a -5 plus or minus 2 square root of 10 over 3. Okay? And our final is completing the square. And again, I did not give you one, but I will here in just a minute, of with a variable, or sorry, a number out in front. But let's go ahead and get started on this one. So first step, remember, is to move the 14 over. Then I take half of 4. So I'm going to take 4, divide it by 2, and square that number. So that would be 4. Okay? Now, the question is, and I'm going to go ahead and put all the steps in here, what are factors of 4 that equal 4? And your answer should be that it's 2 and 2. So this is what that actually looks like. And remember, the shorter way of writing that is x plus 2 squared. And then we're going to add here. I get 18. Okay, so don't forget you're adding it to both sides to keep it even. I'm now going to square root, which is why we call it completing the square, because I want that a square. I get x plus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 18. Again, I'm going to come over and simplify that. And so that is 9 and 2, which is 3 square root of 2. So x plus 2 equals plus or minus 3 square root of 2. And then I'm going to move the 2 over. Okay? Now, don't combine that 2 with the 3 or anything else, because this 3 is with the 2. Okay? With the radical. So you cannot combine the 2. Final answer. Okay? So let me just get you another one here. We'll say 2x squared plus, well, do I want to do 6? Yeah, we'll make it easy for you. We'll do 8x minus 7 equals 0. Okay? So I'm going to add the 7 over. Okay? And this is, again, either way, you can factor or you can divide. Again, I like dividing. So I'm going to divide everything by 2. And now I'm going to take half of 4 is 2. 2 squared is 4. Add that to both sides. Okay. Again, this will factor to be x plus 2 and x plus 2. And if I get a like denominator here, 4 is 8 over 2. So that's going to give me 15 over 2. This is x plus 2 is a shorter way to write it. I'm going to square root both sides. I'm running out of room here. Okay, and when I get to the square root of 15 over 2, that's plus or minus, of course, but if you remember, you're going to have to rationalize, okay, because neither one of those are perfect squares. 2 won't go into 15, so I need to rationalize. I'm going to get the square root of 30 over 2, okay? So square root of 30 over 2. And then I'm going to move my 2 over. Okay? And that is an acceptable answer. Now, one of the things that you might see, and you could definitely do, is you could get a common denominator with the 2 over 1 and the 2, and in which case that would be a negative 4, because negative 4 over 2 reduces to 2 over 1, plus or minus the square root of 30 over 2. That is not necessary, I don't think, for me. It is possible that somebody else might want it written that way, but I do not. Okay? So, I know I kind of ran through this fast, but I didn't want the video to be too long. Solving by completing the square, solving by the quadratic formula, solving by the square root, and solving by factoring.